The mind-body problem is something that has existed for a long time. I have a sense that I really have an independent personality. I have a consciousness. I have an awareness, a self-awareness. I think this is fundamental. But many people today say, many scientists, that my sense of consciousness is really artificial, that it's just a product of my brain.
To some extent, I agree with them. I think that, indeed, they are right. Consciousness, the soul, the mind, are really aspects of a computer program being run on a wet computer called the human brain. And the human brain is fully subject to the laws of physics.
What does that mean?
Well, one of the things, however, we have to keep in mind is that it's still real, this consciousness. This mind, this computer program is real. My examples is, everyone is familiar with the fact that you actually have to pay money to run a word processing program. If I were to use a pirated copy of Microsoft Word, I would hear from Bill Gates' lawyers. I have to pay to use it. The only difference, however, between a blank CD and a CD which contains a word processing program is the pattern of the atoms in the disk.
The atoms, they're the same atoms, they're just rearranged in different ways.
Exactly. Now, interestingly, this dualism between the material and the pattern has already been coded in the laws of physics, specifically in the laws of thermodynamics.
How so?
The first law of thermodynamics basically says energy is conserved. The first law of thermodynamics concerns the material world. It completely controls the materiality of these atoms. The second law of thermodynamics concerns a quantity called entropy, which we know is a way of precisely quantifying information or patterns. It says that the entropy of the universe must increase or stay the same.
So your theory of the soul is not the traditional dualism between matter and mind, or matter and soul in some ethereal, non-physical sense, but a parallelism of the matter being dominant, but the soul or the consciousness being a rearranging of the pattern of the matter. So it's matter and it's patterning in different ways.
Exactly. And one law controls the pattern, the second law. The other law controls the physical reality upon which the pattern has been based. But I wouldn't say that one is more important than the other. We physicists never say that the first law is more important than the second law. They are true, distinct laws in controlling real physical reality. So we have this dualism between matter and soul, not as separate entities, but integrated together in physics itself. Entropy is normally measured in joules per degree Kelvin, an energy unit divided by a temperature unit. I could convert that into amount of thoughts, because what is a thought? From the computer point of view, it's a change in the computer memory. 1 bit is 1 thought. There is, therefore, a direct quantification between bit and entropy.
So your pattern is something that is not a non-physical quantity, but is a rearranging of the matter. So it is matter in a different description of the matter, where the matter is encoding information.
It's a different arrangement of the matter, and different arrangements are really distinct physically, and the second law is telling us exactly how they're distinct.
And therefore has an independent existence, and it's really real. Even though it's not non-physical, it's still real, and it's not material in the sense of it being just the atoms, because the pattern of the atoms creates a new reality.
Exactly. Now, you should, however, not think of them as independent. Physics is a unity. The first and second laws of thermodynamics unify thermodynamics. They are not against each other. They act together. So that we should not think of the human mind, the human soul, as something in opposition to the body, but unified with the body.
So is it fair to say that you're taking the first and second law of thermodynamics and having that be your body-mind or body-soul dualism?
I think that this illustrates the reality of body and soul, that they are both equally real. But as a computer program, let's keep it firmly in mind, the soul is truly immaterial. It achieves what the medieval philosophers wanted to achieve. Many people, when they think of the human soul, think of some sort of white, ghostly, or cloud-like stuff. But if it were, it would be a new material. There is nothing like that out there. They are really trying to make the soul material. I think that's a terrible mistake.
It's a non-physical material, if you will.
It's still a material. What we would do if such a thing existed, we would expand our notion of material, and then it would be in the material world, and it would be subject to the first law of thermodynamics. But it's a completely different stuff. If it were not subject to the second law of thermodynamics, then we could use that stuff to violate the conservation of energy principle. I am not holding my breath. I am completely confident in the first law of thermodynamics in the principle of conservation of energy.
But you are still differentiating between immateriality of this pattern and something that would be non-physical, which would be outside of the physical world. The non-physical soul is the traditional soul of religion, certainly in history. Your soul is immaterial, but it's not non-physical.
I think that you are not quite right on the history of the soul. Because if you look at the Catholic Church, for example, Aquinas, and he was taking many of his hints from Maimonides, who were themselves getting it from Aristotle. They defined the soul, following Aristotle, as the form of activity of the body. Now, remember what the Aristotelian form was. Pattern. So it was already there in their physics. A soul is immaterial because it is a pattern, it is a form, it is not material. And I think that
By
has
saying
often...
not material,
Yes.
are you saying it's non-physical? You're not saying that.
I'm
but
not saying that.
Most religions today say that the soul is non-physical,
meaning
not subject to the laws of physics.
Nothing like that can exist. And if it
So
did...
you then contradict virtually every religion on earth.
I disagree, because I don't think that the real experts would disagree with me, because I'm trying to say Aquinas used the same notion, although expressed in Aristotelian physics, that I am doing. That it was for him, just taking the Aristotelian definition, the soul is the form of...
I can assure you that
Yes.
if you would do a survey of clergy in any one of the major religions as to whether their soul is physical or non-physical, they will say that it is non-physical.
I'm sure they would, because they would identify in their mind the word physical with material. I would think they would use those as synonyms.
Yes.
I have tried these on what are often called fundamentalist Christians. They're not unhappy with what I'm saying once I've clarified my terminology.
But you have your soul subject to the laws of physics.
Yes.
And that most religions would not accept.
They would, I would claim, or would move in the direction of what is called the Gnostic heresy. But we will have to discuss this, because I think it comes up in opposition of science all the time. The Gnostic heresy says that there is this other world outside of space, time, and matter,
Yes.
which is subject to a different God. It's a spiritual world created by a spiritual God. This world in which we find ourselves is, however, a material world, which the Gnostics claim was created by an evil God. What is happening is our soul is stuff, Notice this word stuff, stolen from the physical world and forced into these bodies. That is absolutely contrary to the Judeo-Christian tradition. Genesis chapter 1, God creates everything. He creates the living things, and it's very explicit, and that he saw it was good. This material world is a good world, and this material world which was created by the one God. There is not two gods. There's not a spiritual God. There is not a material God. There is one God creating this world which unifies spirit, information, form, computer programs with energy and matter. They are one unified world, and it is good.
But your unified world, your spirit world, is subject to the laws of physics.
Yes, it is subject to the laws of physics, but let us remember that the laws of physics are created by the cosmological singularity, also known as God, the first cause, the uncaused first cause.